Okay, one more thing, I was thinking about this week. Thousands of people have been fired over social media posts, and they continue to do it. And I was thinking about the psychology that's involved here. Social media is like a mind-altering drug uh, of narcissism, and they get up there, and there's this feeling, this sense of omnipotence and invincibility, and so forth. And they post something which somebody posted yesterday and got fired for. They do the same thing. They walk in the next morning. They get terminated at their job. What's the first thing they do? They go back home. They start themselves a crying. They hit record. They blabber into the phone. They stop. They check it to see how it is. And if they like it, they hit send. That's the facts of the matter, and they're not in dispute. I don't know if social media functions as kind of a substitute friend. Normally you'd run to your spouse or family or friends or something after something like that. You'd call one of them or do that. But I don't understand the psychology of I got to get home and get to social media. That's that's like some weird friend that now in times of sorrow and grief, that's the friend you turn to. It's a strange thing. Uh, Nobody's worse off if they never go on social media. It is, depending on how you use it, it is a cancer, in my view. That's my opinion of social media. My dad, what?
I'm just wondering when things are gonna reverse as far as social media goes, instead of people getting fired for saying something nasty about somebody like Charles Kirk, when they're gonna get fired for saying something positive about God. But I think that'll happen too eventually.
Well, I don't know how you speculate about what might happen in the future, but we can definitely know what's happening in the present. And the fact that you can watch this happen thousands of times and then do exactly the same thing still is extraordinary. It tells you how much like an addictive drug it is. It's a mind-altering addictive drug. I can't help it. I got to do it.
I mean, it's a movement, just like, I won't say it's just like Me Too movement, because there's a lot of truth to that one. But still, one person does it, and all of a sudden other people start doing it.
Well, it's a false sense of a community.
Yeah.
It's not a community. The Facebook friend, that's not a group of friends. That's not a community. That's a virtual world.
Yeah.
Or if you want to think of it as a video game, which a lot of people do, they troll around and stuff. They're not too affected by any of it. But social media is as close to being a mind-altering addictive drug as you can get without taking a pill.
And it's so amazing how people are warned and warned and warned that once it's out there, it's always there. And they do it anyway.
Yeah, and right now what's going on, of course, is that there's an army of people just waiting. They're scouring social media looking for anyone, because they know what happens is people do this in that moment of that feeling of invincibility. They do it. And then somebody says something or they think about it and they quickly try to remove it. Too late. Because somebody else has already stepped in and pulled off that content. So yeah, don't do it. Don't do it. Rage in your own house, scream, rant, say whatever you want, loud as you can, pound your pillow, get together with your friends and have a seance to pronounce a curse on whoever you want to pronounce a curse on, whatever you want to do, that's fine. Just don't do it on social media.
I'll go with the seance, please.
Okay. Let's talk about the anchor in a world of chaos. The world is chaos, and boy, is that entropy, man, it's incredible. We are in a world of tremendous decentralization, and that's exactly what we're talking about here. The gatekeeping has come to an end. We've talked about this all summer with news organizations in Hollywood. The gatekeepers publishing, none of those gatekeepers can keep the gates anymore. They don't. The gates have been ripped from them. And now it's the frontier. Now it's the Wild West. They're still trying to police it, but you got to police yourself. Alrighty, this is a diagram that I made for a talk I gave at church down the street a while back. We started in Genesis 1. The story will continue through Revelation chapter 21, which will constitute the arc of the history of redemption. From the past and into the future, when we see the return of the king and then the setting up of his eternal kingdom right here. This is our ultimate destination. We were born here, and when we die, at some point, we will return here in redeemed bodies, and this will be our home. So we all go to heaven when we die, sure, but then we all come back eventually. So I think it's just, we do well to remind ourselves of the place of Genesis 1 in this story. It was the beginning of a plan that God began his plan in Genesis 1, and he will continue it until the return of the king. All right. Talk about some of this other stuff later. We got through some of Genesis 24. This is the story of Abraham sending his servant to get Isaac a wife. I mean, it can seem strange to us, but think about the situation. Yeah, you're 18 years old, you go to Michigan State, you're going to be there 4 years. How many options are there on the campus? How many potential options are there for getting married? Like 99.48% of them are terrible ideas, but good and bad options. How many options are there? All day long. It's everywhere, right? That's the world in which we live. That's the urban, suburban world in which we live. So this is really alien to us. But if you can imagine a world where there are none, and there won't be, you have to do something. And you have to do something because you have to pass on what you have to the next generation. And so now Abraham has this son named Isaac. Next, his first concern was getting the heir, that's Isaac. But his next concern is getting the heir a wife, because without a wife, what was the point of the heir? The line will die with him. So that's next up in the story. It's perfectly logical. It makes perfect sense. God had told him about the plan for Isaac, promised him over and over again, right? This time next year, Sarah's going to have a son. She laughs. What was that? Did you laugh? Did I see you just laugh? No, I didn't laugh. I'm telling you, I saw you laugh. And I'm telling you again, next time this year, I will return and you're going to have a son. And that's exactly what happened. Nothing was said about a wife. That was silent. Nothing was said about, don't take a wife from, don't give him a wife from the Canaanites. Don't take him to Egypt to get a wife among the Egyptians, which is what, what's her name? Hagar. What Hagar did. Ishmael ended up marrying an Egyptian. But with Isaac, all those avenues have been cut off. And so they sit there in the middle of Canaan with no options. So then this story happens. It's inevitable. It had to happen. The next big threat to the covenant, the last threat to the covenant was the near sacrifice of Isaac. The threat before that was Sarah was barren. You know, the threat before that, one of the threats before that was Lot. What if he takes Canaan? One of the threats before that was Abraham proceeding right on out of Canaan into Egypt. So these, you know, it's been one threat after another. Here's the new one. The new one is there's no choices. There's not a lot of choices. Abraham handed down the rules. There will be no wife for Isaac from among the Canaanites. And he is not to return, he is not to leave this land. So talk about a no-win situation. God either provides a wife from Abraham's family, or the line dies. That's the threat to the covenant. And so once again, you have this building anticipation of not really whether, but how it is that God would pave the way and remove this threat to the covenant. And it's another interesting, interesting story in that, yes, God is mentioned over and over and over again, but you never see him do anything. The author never says, God did thusly, and this happened. It just simply happens. And there's an awful lot of stories in the Bible that are like that. It just happens, it just unfolds according to the divine narrative, with God out of sight, not being seen, that invisible hand of God that's always moving, and he just intervenes in the narrative, and it works out his way. And that's the deal with this story. So Abraham 24, we'll just skim through the first little bit here through 9, because we talked about it last week. So Abraham is old. You know, you get the blessing of the covenant here. God had blessed, the Lord had blessed Abraham in all things. So he sends off his main servant, the guy that runs his household, to go to Paddan Aram, which is to the east, the northeast, to get a wife for Isaac. I mean, it's not like he can, that sounds weird to us, right? Arranged marriages. Well, what are the options? Hey, run around and see who you like. Just keep looking around till you find somebody that suits you. No, that's not going to happen. So he's going to head off. Verse 6 cuts off all avenues of retreat. See to it that you do not take my son back there. So there's a twofold task here. Go to Paddan Aram, get a wife for my son, number one. Number two, do not take my son back there. And why doesn't he want him to take his son back there? This is the promised land. Now, what's interesting about that, well, there's many interesting things, but Rebecca and Isaac, who are the players here, all's well that's going to end well for them, they're going to force Jacob, their son, to flee Canaan and go back to Paddan Aram and take a wife. So we'll get to that story in the next couple chapters. But here, what you're seeing then is this principle of Israelite purity. It starts with the first generation. The first time there's a redemptive family, Abraham, Sarah, and Isaac. From that moment, the principle of Israelite purity is established. Do not intermarry with the Canaanites. That's first generation rule. They set the pattern. Do not intermarry with the Canaanites. And when you get to Judges, it will be do not intermarry with the Canaanites over and over and over again. But what do the Israelites do over and over and over again? They intermarry with the Canaanites. That's exactly what happens. That's later in the story.
Even in Abraham's marriage, there was no intermarriage.
That's right. Yeah, that's true too. Right. Well, actually, yeah, that's correct. So even before the promise, the proto, what do you call that? Proto promise.
Yeah.
Purity. And so he is expecting in verse 7, the Lord, the God of heaven, Now Abraham can see the whole, he can see the whole vision of God and the plan of God, who took me from my father's house and from the land of my kindred, and who spoke to me the promise. The promise is ever in his mind now. He will send his angel before you, and you'll get a wife for my son. And so we expect then that the servant will have to do no work, that he will have to expend no effort in finding Isaac's wife. On the contrary, he will practically trip over her on the way in. There in a second. Let's see. And that's about it. Let's move on. The servant took 10 of his master's camels, departed, taking all sorts of choice gifts from his master. He arose and went to Mesopotamia, to the east, to the city of Nahor, which is to say the city where Nahor lived, which was Paddan Aram. And he made the camels kneel down outside the city by the well of water at the time of evening, the time when women go out to drink, to draw water. So there's the anticipation. You already can see it coming. And he said, O Lord, Yahweh, God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show steadfast love to my master Abraham. So he doesn't even start searching. He goes to the well. Does he go to the well? Is he thinking, you know what? The women are going to come out to the well to draw water, because that's how it's done. So I'm going to the well. But he doesn't go searching around the city or whatever it was. Let the young woman to whom I shall say, please let down your jar that I may drink, and who shall say, drink, and I will water your camels. Let her be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. By this I shall know that you have shown steadfast love to my master. So it seems to me obvious at this point that that's exactly what he was thinking. He already knew what he was going to do. Care about the rule of tens? 10 camels, right? Up there. Let's see. Where's that? Or did I imagine it?
First 10.
10 of his master's camels. Genesis 32. We have Jacob's 10 bulls. Genesis 45. Joseph's 10 donkeys. 1 Samuel 17. Jesse's 10 loaves. 1 Kings 14. Jeroboam's 10 loaves. 2 Kings 5. Naaman's 10 talents. I don't know what it means, but I thought it was interesting. I undoubtedly got that from a counselor. I would not have searched for tens of things in the Bible on my own. So we have the expectation that God will act and act immediately. No wasting time. He's not planning on spending months at this project. He's expecting that he's there to get a wife. If God is behind this, the thing will just happen. And so he goes to the well, and now we get into the like 3 times told story part, right? So he says this to God. This is his prayer. Do as he says and not as he does. You don't have permission to do this with God just because he did it. That is not an application point that you can draw out of this narrative. But anyway, that's what he's waiting for. Before he had finished speaking, so there's already no question, because the narrator interrupts his own story to say that he's still talking. Here comes Rebekah. Behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Nahor, Abraham's brother, came out, but with her water jar on her shoulder, and that's it. Fulfillment. But we're not quite there yet. You have promise, anticipation, and fulfillment. The promise through Abraham, the Lord will do this for you. Anticipation right here, and then fulfillment right around the corner, but not before he really builds the anticipation. The young woman was very attractive in appearance, a maiden, so young. whom no man had known. She went down to the spring and filled her jar and came up. Then the servant ran to meet her. So there it is, right? The first one, it's not like, are you somebody, are you part of Nahor's family? Are you part? Nope. He sees her, he goes right straight for her. Please give me a little water to drink from your jar. It's not like he ran around to all these women. Please give me a little water to drink from your jar. No, please give me, I don't know. Please give me one after another. It's the first one. She said, drink, my lord, and she quickly let down her jar upon her hand. Very, very slow narrative now. Very expanded narrative. And gave him a drink because anticipation and fulfillment. And when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw water for your camels also until they have finished drinking. So from out of his mouth and then out of hers. So she quickly emptied her jar into the trough, ran again to the well to draw water. She drew for all the camels. For all his camels.
Well, this camels drink a lot of water.
I know they do.
And how many gallons was that jug? I would doubt that it could carry more than 10. Because that 10 gallons is very heavy. That's a lot of trips to the water.
It is 10 camels. But somebody look that up. Really?
You can drink 40 gallons of water.
Wow.
Not that it has to have that.
So when she says that, she sees the 10 camels. So when she volunteers to water the camels. Yeah, yeah, and she's just a little girl. The man gazed at her in silence to learn whether the Lord had prospered his journey or not. Of course, this is great narrative. Of course he had, but this, this anticipation that builds. But, from his perspective now, he's just gazing, watching this unfold, letting it unfold. And when the camels, do I got anything to say about any of that? I really don't have a lot to say about this. No. When the camels had finished drinking, the man took a gold ring weighing, he's convinced at this point. He doesn't even know her. He doesn't know. He doesn't know who she is. So at this point, he knows who she is. He knows that he already knows. Man took a gold ring weighing a half shekel and 2 bracelets for her arms, weighing 10 gold shekels, and said, please tell me whose daughter you are. Is there room in your father's house for us to spend the night? And she said to him, I am the daughter of Bethuel, the son of Milcah, whom she bore to Nahor. Ding, 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 ding. She added, we have plenty of both straw and fodder and room to spend the night. And the man bowed his head, worshiped the Lord, and said, blessed be the Lord, the God of my master Abraham, who has not forsaken his steadfast love and his faithfulness toward my master. It's almost the beginning of the tradition of the Psalms. When you think of how many Psalms read like that. But it's just this spontaneous blessing on God, for obviously God has moved. As for me, the Lord has led me in the way to the house of my master's kinsman. So in case anybody wasn't paying attention, the narrator threw the player in the story makes the fulfillment explicit. The young woman ran and told her mother's household about these things. Rebecca, enter Laban. Wow. Rebecca had a brother whose name was Laban. I don't like Laban.
Me neither.
I already don't like Laban. I mean, there's lots of reasons to not like Laban, but Laban don't come off very well almost right from the beginning. Why is he running out to meet the man? What does he care about? She walks in with this gold, tells him about it. He runs back out. Is he just tickled pink to see this guy? Or, she doesn't know who he is. It's not, what?
He's acting like a big brother caring about his little sister, I think.
I mean, it's an argument from silence, but he doesn't tell her does he?
But you also wonder if they know who Abraham is. Most of the people, they wouldn't have been born when Abraham left.
No.
You wonder how much his brother, Abram, passed down to Abraham, about Abraham, too. So,
I'm not sure that Abraham's name's been mentioned yet.
It has. He said, there's the blessing that he gives on God,
Okay.
but it doesn't say that he said it to her. It's an argument from silence. It doesn't say that he said it to her. Not, why would it have any meaning? So Laban just runs out because that's where the money is. That's what I think, based on his,
He saw the ring and bracelets.
that's exactly right. Yep. As soon as he saw the ring and the bracelets on his sister's arms, heard the words of Rebekah, his sister, thus the man spoke to me. He went to the man. And behold, he was standing by the camels at the spring. He said, "Come in, O blessed of the Lord." I don't know. Maybe it's sincere. It just kind of, to me, it just kind of reeks of ulterior motive. Because he's not a Yahweh worshiper. He even uses Yahweh right there. Oh, blessed of Yahweh. But that's not him. They're not a family of Yahweh worshipers. At least not, there's no indication of that from the narrative. Why do you stand outside? For I have prepared the house and a place for the camels. When did he do that? I mean, what? Why? Huh? So the man came to the house and unharnessed the camels, gave straw and fodder to the camels, and there was water to wash his feet and the feet of the men who were with him. Then food was set before him to eat, but he said, "I will not eat until I have said what I have to say." So Laban said, "Speak on." Notice who's missing. There's somebody missing from the narrative.
But Fuel or Bethel?
Bethuel is missing. Yeah. So far. So Laban is the spokesman, not Rebekah's father. So we can infer some things from that. He's going to get a mention in a minute, but that's debated. We'll get to that in a second. So he said, "I am Abraham's servant. The Lord has greatly blessed my master, and he has become great. He has given him flocks and herds, silver and gold, male servants and female servants, camels and donkeys. And Sarah, my master's wife, bore a son to my master when she was old, and to him he has given all that he has." Oh, that's enticing. That's enticing. My master's made me, so he just communicated that I'm here, basically, I'm here to get a daughter, to get a wife for the heir of all that my master has, and he's got a lot. My master made me swear, saying, "You shall not take a wife for my son from the daughters of the Canaanites in whose land I dwell." So now is this the second? I think it's the second. Is this the second or third time that we're going to go through all this? But you shall go to my father's house and to my clan and take a wife for my son. And I said to my master, "Perhaps the woman will not follow me." But he said to me, "The Lord, Yahweh, before whom I have walked, will send his angel with you and prosper your way." So this is the second telling of this part of the story. "And you shall take a wife for my son, from my clan and from my father's house. Then you will be free from my oath when you come to my clan. And if they will not give her to you, you will be free from my oath." So this is not search around until you find someone. This is a one-shot deal. Rebecca's it. If he doesn't get Rebecca, he's going back to Canaan without a wife. And the promise is dead. Now we're into second telling of this part of the story. "And I came to the spring and said, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, if now you are prospering the way that I go, for behold, I am standing by the spring of water. Let the virgin who comes out to draw water, to whom I shall say, Please give me a little water for your jar to drink, and who will say to me, Drink, and I will draw for your camels also. Let her be the woman whom the Lord has appointed for my master's son." The English mind is not particularly quick to appreciate repetition in storytelling. Before I had finished speaking in my heart, that was said too, right? That's what before it was from the narrator. Before he finished speaking, here comes Rebecca. Now he says it. Before I had finished speaking in my heart, behold, Rebecca came out with her water jar on her shoulder, and she went down to the spring and drew water. And I said to her, Please let me drink. She quickly let down her jar from her shoulder and said, Drink, and I will give your camels drink also. So I drank, and she gave the camels drink also. Wow. Then I asked her, whose daughter are you? And she said, the daughter of Bethuel. We're gonna do the whole thing, right? The daughter of Bethuel, Naor's son, whom Milcah bore to him. So I put the ring on her nose. That's where they put the ring. Because strangers just do that back in the day, apparently. And the bracelets on her arms. Then I bowed my head and worshiped the Lord and blessed the Lord, Yahweh, Yahweh, the God of my master Abraham. He's just hovering over the whole story. Both the narrator and the servant, whose name we never get, make sure that in the story, God is completely saturating the narrative.
Yes.
Who has led me by the right way to take the daughter of my master's kinsman for his son. Now then, if you are going to show steadfast and faithful love and faithfulness to my master, tell me, and if not, tell me that I may turn to the right or to the left. Now it says, then Laban and Bethuel answered and said, that is a disputed text, whether and Bethuel,
Really?
yeah, is in there. So, he pops back in, do with it as you will. But the spokesman is Laban. The thing has come from the Lord. We cannot speak to you bad or good. Behold, Rebekah is before you. Take her and go, and let her be the wife of your master's son, so the Lord, as the Lord has spoken. So it was decreed. Everybody's in agreement. It was decreed by Abraham. The Lord will do this. The servant obviously thinks so, and now Laban and the family are in agreement as well, at least in the narrative, regardless of anyone's motive. I've been talking a long time. Does anybody want to interrupt me with anything?
I'm curious, did you come across anything saying how old they thought Rebecca might have been at this time?
Other than the fact that she's a young maiden. She's a young unmarried maiden.
Yeah, it wasn't unusual back in the days for a girl to be married by age 13. Although we know Isaac was, what, 37 when his mom died, I think?
I don't know, he's gonna be 40 when he's gonna be 60 when Jacob is born. And he's
Yeah.
gonna be
there was a
40.
long time of barrenness.
Yeah, 20 years. We'll get back to the barrenness thing again. We certainly don't look at it that way. Yeah, the idea that children would be an encumbrance. They would not have understood any such mindset. The limitation they had in the Roman Empire, you've heard the story, maybe you haven't heard the stories, where the father, he basically got to choose whether the kid was gonna live or die.
Mhm.
And he either accepted the kid or not. And it was a purely pragmatic financial decision. You only have so many resources. And this is not, we cannot afford this, so we have to wait for, or we just can't afford it. We just can't afford it. Or I don't know, but I have a feeling it was purely pragmatic.
Seems like there's a famous correspondence that's been preserved through the ages of our father. Must have been away on a trip of business and writing a letter to his wife and saying, well, if it's a boy, keep it. If it's a girl, throw her on the river.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's really funny that is viewed as horrific and by a person with a certain political persuasion and a belief about reproductive rights.
Yeah.
When Abraham's servant heard their words, he bowed himself to the earth before the Lord. And the servant brought out jewelry of silver and of gold and garments, what Laban's been waiting for, I think, gave them to Rebekah. There it is. He also gave to her brother, to her mother, brother and mother, the brother and mother. costly ornaments. And he and the men who were with him ate and drank, and they spent the night there. And when they arose in the morning, he said, "Send me away to my master." Her brother and her mother said, "Let the young woman remain with us a while, at least 10 days. After that, she may go." But he said, "Do not delay me. Nope, the business has been completed. That's it. Do not delay me, since the Lord has prospered my way. We have to seal the deal on this, and I have to get back. Send me away that I may go to my master." And they said, "Let us call the young woman and ask her." They called Rebekah and said to her, "Will you go with this man?" And she said, "I will go." And what are her options? You don't want to be a single woman either, so they sent away Rebekah. I mean, this may have been, from her perspective, this may have been the chance of a lifetime.
It's been an adventure.
So they sent away Rebekah, their sister, and her nurse, and Abraham's servant and his men. And they blessed Rebekah and said, "Our sister," to repetition, in a sense, affirmation of God's covenant promise. "May you become thousands of 10,000s, and may your offspring possess the gates of those who hate them." So it's affirmation of the covenant. I was going to say something about Rebekah. It's just such a strange thing from our 21st century to our 21st century years. Everybody's in agreement. Nobody's doing anything under compulsion. The narrative is very clear on that. That last little bit about them asking Rebekah, everybody is aligned with the plan of God at this point. Her family, the servant, everybody. Abraham and her young women arose and rode on the camels and followed the man. Thus the servant took Rebekah and went his way, the unnamed servant, who was so instrumental in the next step of the history of the redemption of the people of God. This is a critical moment in the history of redemption, and he never gets a name here. Well, oh, I do have notes for you. Got some notes to read. Good. None of them matter. My notes are bad. I didn't say anything. I didn't write anything interesting. I tried very hard to write something interesting for notes, but I failed. I'm not gonna bother.
What's kind of interesting is the fact that, here is throughout the Old Testament, when somebody visits somebody, they're always trying to talk them into staying
Yeah.
longer. I mean, her family, her mom's like, "No, leave her here for 10 more days and then we'll send her on." And it's like, okay, 10 days, and you're gonna send the servant away and then send her 10 days later. That's not gonna happen.
Right.
You know,
And,
in Judges,
Mhm.
the priest that got his concubine, her father's like, stay, drink, it's getting late, so you need to drink again. Next day, same thing,
Yeah.
same thing, for 5 straight days, he taught this Levite to stay there instead of going finally, the Levite's like, "No, it's getting late, I need to get going." And there's other instances where somebody comes and it's like, "Dude, stay."
It sounds like the mom doing something smart. That sounds like a real scam to go steal your pretty daughter.
What's this here?
Yeah, like somebody says, I want to get her married to a rich guy. He's out there, gonna take her away.
Yeah,
And they said specifically that she's pretty and a kid, well, probably a kid. Sounds like a scam.
it's all risky.
It's really.
It's all risky. Yeah.
Now, understand the servant may have been with Abraham way back when he was still in Paddan Aram. And so they may have recognized him, and so there may have been some authenticity. We don't know. the
Well, who would know,
Bible
how would, so this guy shows up,
says- Mhm.
how would he know anything about Abraham? He shows up and says, I'm a servant of Abraham, your uncle. Well, that's a heck of a thing to make up, because how do you? Probably true. But in a sense, it doesn't matter. They can still just enslave her and do whatever they want. To her point,
Yeah, it's I know your uncle, get in the van, I got candy.
exactly. And he really is the uncle.
Thing is, Abraham has been in Canaan for a long time at this time. So a lot of these, even Bethel, might not even know Abraham. Because Abraham has been gone for over 25 years.
Well, they know where Nahor is.
Yeah, but.
How do they know where Nahor is? He sends him right to Nahor's
Right,
city.
I'm not saying, because Nahor stayed when Abraham left, but his grandkids wouldn't know Abraham.
But they moved. They moved. This is not the same place they were at before. They went to Haran up here. But now he sends them to Paddan Aram, which is here. He knows Nahor has moved from Haran.
Well, I'm not saying Abraham didn't know his brother, he knew around the area that his brother, but Nahor could have been dead by now.
And almost certainly was.
And Bethuel, his son, may not have known Abraham.
Or Nahor still lives in Haran. And the rest of the family is now in Paddan Aram. But how then would Abraham know that? He knew that they were in Paddan Aram.
Right.
He sent this guy to Paddan. He knew where his family was, so he knew
I'm
somehow.
not saying that, I'm just saying that the kids may not have known who Abraham was.
Yes, yeah.
We really don't know, because the Bible is silent on it, but we do know Abraham was like 65 or 75 before they ever moved.
Yeah, he was,
Canaan.
yeah, he was.
And now, while Sarah was barren for a long time, that doesn't necessarily mean that Nahor was. He may have had children a lot younger. And so, maybe the reason Bethuel's hardly in the story is that he's quite old himself by this point.
Yeah.
We just don't know.
No, we don't. Don't do a sermon on it.
But back to what Mike was saying about them begging to stay overnight. This is the only time in the Old Testament that the story ended well. Every time they stayed overnight, things bad happened.
Right.
Well, this is foreshadowing,
Yes.
because in a little while, Jacob is going where?
Going back to Laban.
He's going back to Laban,
Yeah.
and he ain't gonna get out of there for 20 years. He deserved it. Anyway.
He had a lot to learn.
Now Isaac had, let's see, so they take off. And off they go back down southeast or southwest. Isaac had returned from Beer Lahai Roy, sure. And was dwelling in the Negev, the south country. And Isaac went out to meditate in the field toward evening. You can just see the anticipation again. Is this going to work out or not? He lifted up his eyes and saw, and behold, there were camels coming. It's slowing the narrative down. Rebecca lifted up her, oh man. It's like movie level
Yeah.
thing. And Rebecca lifted up her eyes, and when she saw Isaac, she dismounted from the camel and said to the servant, "Who is that man walking in the field to meet us?" The servant said, "It is my master." Before the master was Abraham. Now the master is Isaac. Abraham is nowhere to be found. This says that Isaac was dwelling in the Negev, not that Abraham was. And the servant said, "Who is that man walking in the field?" Said to the servant. Servant said, "Is my master." So she took her veil and covered herself. She knows. That's him, says the servant. So she took a veil and covered herself, and the servant told Isaac all the things that he had done. Isaac brought her into the tent of Sarah, his mother, and took Rebekah, and she became his wife. And he loved her, so Isaac was comforted after his mother's death. And that's the end of the story. Very, very human. It's the most human sounding arranged marriage story you're probably ever gonna hear. All's well that ends well.
love at first sight.
Commitment.
And in just a little bit, Jacob and Esau are gonna be born. And then it's just gonna be Jacob and Esau with that story, that's like the chaos monkey being introduced into the narrative. And it's just it's chaos after that. All this nice, all's well that ends well and happy love story. Yeah, that's all going out the window at this point. Even when they try with Jacob and Rachel, that all just turns into a mess too. I mean, it's gonna be a mess from here on out, or, with the birth of Isaac, Esau and Jacob.
I guess it's to show that the guy can do his will even in chaos.
I think that's the point. Yeah, that's the point. All right, what else I got here?
I remember my Old Testament started this band. You know, man. Isaac met his wife at a well. Jacob met his wife at a well. Moses met his wife at a well. What do you learn from this? Hang around the drinking fountain and you might find your wife.
Yeah, a lot of times the guy hanging around the drinking fountain is known as the creepy one.
Yeah.
So,
That's because they listen to my professor.
it's kind of a 50-50. Kind of a 50-50 on that. In 25:7, Abraham's gonna be 175 years old when he dies. So where is he right now? No mention of him. So I don't know. Isaac and Rebecca never speak to each other before they're married in the narrative. And what did Isaac know?
He knew that the head was.
Huh?
He knew that the head of God was his.
Yeah, but it's never mentioned that Isaac is in on the arrangement.
No.
He probably is, but there's no mention of it. It just works out that way. So that's what apparently, from the vantage point of the story of Genesis, is a critical moment. Because I don't know that there's another 62 verse story. Before you get to Joseph, I don't know that there's another 62 verse story before or after this one. Sustained story. And this one is the marriage of Rebecca and Isaac.
The interesting thing, Isaac is such a prominent part of redemptive history. And yet, the narrative about him specifically is more about those around him.
Yeah.
A lot more about his dad, a lot more about his wife and his children. He lives the longest of all patriarchs. But there's less in his voice than any of the other ones.
So he's born in chapter 21.
Yeah.
And he will pass off basically after the blessing on and the cursing of Jacob and Esau. And then he's finished. And that's not too far away. So he gets the shortest amount of text. Abraham is 12 till now, 12 to 24. Jacob is going to get 25 to basically the end of the book.
Yeah.
Half the book of Genesis is about Jacob and his sons.
His name is Israel.
Yeah. And then Joseph is going to get the last 13 chapters. So almost a quarter of the book of Genesis is Joseph.
Really, if you think about it, because remember, Moses is the author of this book, so it's been being written hundreds of years after the events, at least 400 years after the most recent events. But he's leading a people, the children of Israel, out of bondage. And in bondage, they probably forgot a lot about their heritage. And there's a lot of that sense in which this is, God's using Moses to help them know where they came from.
That's exactly what I have said about the purpose of Genesis. Yeah. It's
I guess it was earlier.
it's a manual of correction.
Yeah.
For a pagan people to rediscover their roots and the God of Israel. About whom, in my view, they knew nothing.
Yeah.
They were a pagan. Every indication in the wilderness, in the desert after the sea, is that this is a pagan people. who have no familiar, and Moses too. Moses at the bush, chapter 3, Exodus, who are you? When I go back there, who should I tell them you are? We don't know you. Well, you're gonna tell them this. Okay, well, I don't wanna do this. No, you're gonna do it. I don't speak very well. Well, your brother Aaron can speak then. Now, go pick somebody else. No, I'm not picking somebody else. That's Moses.
It's such an interesting thing all the way around.
All right, we're gonna have to stop now. So, thank you. And we'll see you later.